Hi guys, it's Mandy here. So this morning I was just checking in to see what was going on about the whole Cleopatra documentary series, and I came across this video which actually kind of shocked me. This is a video by a girl whose channel is called Kemet Queen. She seems like a really lovely girl. She's very sweet. She's very soft spoken. Apparently, these pro-black Cleopatra supporters are basically throwing immense abuse at her simply because she spoke out. She's Egyptian and she spoke out about the Netflix appropriating her culture and black people basically blackwashing the history of Cleopatra and basically claiming it as their own. And she spoke up. She spoke up against it, and apparently loads of people have been sending her abusive messages and just exposing themselves for the racists that they are. And frankly, I think it's disgusting. You know what? I think it goes to show just how ignorant a lot of these people are. They actually haven't studied any history. Like I said in my previous video, schools are not teaching black people about their history. They are keeping them ignorant. They are teaching them only about African slavery. Also, I would like to point out, it begs the question, what are their parents saying to them? What are their parents and their grandparents teaching them? Because if their parents and their grandparents are teaching them that this kind of behavior is acceptable, what on earth is going on here, guys? We shouldn't just be looking at the schools. Look at their parents and their grandparents. What on earth is going on? I say, this is absurd. You know, frankly, I think people who behave like this, I don't think they should be allowed to live in the Americas. I think they should be sent back to Africa, frankly. I think they should be deported back to their original countries, because it's like you're abusing the privileges that America gives you. You are literally taking advantage of all those luxuries that America gives you and just using it as a resource to abuse other people. And I think, you know what? If you want to learn the history of your actual culture, fine. I think go and live in Africa. You want to be so proud of your heritage? You want to hold up the heritage of Africa? Then go and live in Africa. Go and move to Africa and be African, if that's what you want. But stop throwing abuse at other cultures. These people have thrown not just abuse at her culture, but loads of other cultures. They mentioned Hispanic, they mentioned Romanian, Gypsies, they mentioned Turks, they mentioned anyone who basically comes from the Middle East. And they basically said, we're all bunching you together and saying you're all the same lot, but you're everything and anything except African. And apparently Africa, the world map is completely wrong, and Africa completely engulfs the whole of the Middle East, Persia and everything. It all involves that. That's all part of Africa. It's not its own thing. It doesn't have its own culture. It doesn't have its own history. All these different cultures that were separated by borders and by, traditions and languages, they don't exist. No. They're all part of the same culture, which is Africa. And Africa doesn't have its own different languages. It's all one thing as well. Africa is not separated by tribes, by languages, by different traditions and different cultures as well. Africa's just one big glob. And that's according to all these people. They think it's all they think it all is just one thing, because they clearly didn't study geography. Their history teachers only taught them one thing, which was that they were a bunch of slaves. Their parents only taught them one thing, which is to be resentful of the slavery that their ancestors suffered. Because why teach them actual history about African history? Why teach them about the African gods? you know? Why teach them about any of that? Why teach them about the kings of Africa? Why teach them about the difference of tribes in Africa, about the difference of the languages, about the difference of the cultures? Why teach them that when you could just teach them that you only have one aspect of history to look at, and you must be resentful of that aspect of history, and as a result of your resentment, you can then go around appropriating other people's cultures because that's the only part of history you have. I feel so sorry for these people. I really do. I feel so sorry that this is the only thing that they think they have in life and history. That's the only aspect of history that they believe that they truly have, to the point where they have to hijack somebody else's history, another culture's history, and then spit in their face and call them racist for standing up and saying, no, we are not part of your culture. Stop hijacking our culture and go and look into your own history. Go and look into the African history. Pick up a book and read it. Go and speak to a historian who knows about your history, and stop hijacking our history for Hollywood. Okay? These people, that's what they're saying. They're saying, go and do your own research. Go and pick up a book. Go and talk to a historian. Go and talk to an actual African who has lived in Africa. Go and look at a map. Go and look at a bloody world map and learn that there is a difference between Africa and Egypt. They are separated by a border. They are not the same country. You need to stop saying they are the same thing. They are not the same thing. That's like saying Germans and French are the same thing. They're not the same thing. Just because they are next to each other or close to each other does not mean that they are the same thing. You cannot clump countries together and say, you're all ours now. See, hijacking things seems to be something that Hollywood likes to do a lot. Hollywood really likes to sort of hijack history and completely change it and then claim that it's a source of information for the minorities. What is going on? And apparently I heard, I don't know how true this is, but like apparently the people at the very top of this pyramid, which I'm going to call it a pyramid because that's exactly what it is, a pyramid, they're twisting the arms of the CEOs of these companies like Netflix and Disney and all this. I mean, think about it. Has anyone ever thought about who is actually at the very top of this pyramid and who is holding the arms of these companies behind their backs, twisting their arms behind their backs and saying, you will put all this bullshit into your films and into your documentaries and you will film all this stuff because we said so. Has anyone ever considered that? You know, I saw a very quick short with Ben Shapiro where someone mentioned that there are a bunch of people right at the top who are basically saying to these companies, if you do not put this information into your films, if you do not push this agenda stuff, we will cut your funding, we will shut you down. And these companies are basically under threat of being shut down because these people want to push this agenda shit. They want to push this propaganda that Black people have to feel validated. They have to push this agenda nonsense that Black people must hijack other people's cultures in order to feel validated. You know, that's what they're doing. They're deliberately pushing this stuff. And, you know, it's very interesting how we always look at it as being Disney is the top dog. Who's at the top of Disney? Oops, sorry, I just spat. You know, we go, who's at the top of Disney? And then we don't think who's beyond that. You know, there are people beyond the top of Disney who are holding Disney basically hostage to their demands and saying, if you do not do what we want, we will shut you down. And I'm not talking about just Disney. I'm talking about Netflix and all these other companies. Basically, they are basically holding them hostage and saying, you will do what we say or we will shut you down and we will cut your funding, and you will have no business money at all. You know, it's basically do what we say or else. And it's insane that no one's thinking about who's right at the very top. You know, you got this pyramid, you've got all the companies, like all the different companies. You've got Netflix, you've got Disney, you've got DreamWorks, you've got all these companies who are basically pushing this agenda stuff. And then you don't bother to stop and think, who's the very pinnacle of this pyramid? Who's at the very top of this pyramid? Illuminati symbol there. You know? Who's at the very top of it? Ask yourself that question. Who is beyond the top of the CEO of Disney, Netflix? Who is at the very top? And maybe do your research on that. Because if we expose those people, we will suddenly be able to destroy the pyramid. Because if we expose them for who they are and what they are and doing what they're doing, we will suddenly break the system. You've got to get to the source of this evil in order to break the whole pyramid, guys. So if you want to break this system, you have to do your research to find who's at the very top of this. Because people go, oh, the CEO of the company is at the top. So no, guys. The CEO is at the top of the company, but there is someone above them holding the company hostage. So you got to ask, who's at the top? Who is at the top? The top of the top, you know? And find out who they are. Because that's where all this stuff spawns from. It spawns from someone at the very, very top here, and it goes all the way down. Like a river. It's got to have a source. A river has a source somewhere up in the mountains. You got to reach the top of the mountain, and you got to find the source of the water. You got to find it, and you got to follow it all the way down. You block that source, the entire river dries up. Seriously, please go and show some love to this girl, because no one should ever suffer this kind of abuse just for speaking out and defending their country and their culture. Everyone has a culture. You have to look into your own history and research it if you want to find the truth about your culture. Do not hijack somebody else's culture and then blame them and insult them for standing up for the fact that their culture is not your culture. You do not have a right to hijack somebody else's culture. That's unbelievable racism right there. So don't do it. I certainly do believe people need to stand up for their cultures, for their rights, for their beliefs, but be respectful of other people's cultures, you know. Know your history, know your heritage, know your background. Don't go through life being ignorant and believing what your grandmother said. That's another thing that really ticks me off about this series. That clip of that woman says, I don't care what schools teach you. My grandma told me she was black, so I believe she was black. That's unbelievable ignorance. It's like, so your grandmother knows everything, does she? Your grandmother is the source of all your information? What does that tell you? These people are being conditioned by their own families, their parents, their grandparents. She's like, I value my grandma's opinion and knowledge so much that she told me to completely ignore what the schools told me about history and to just listen to her. So in that case, she, you know, if her grandmother said it was a good, healthy thing for her to jump off a bridge, so she would believe her, right? Okay, great source of information, right? Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a bit worked up about this, but I'm just, it's so bad. It's so bad, guys. We really need to sort of put our foot down and say, like I said, go and find who runs the pyramid, you know, who is the top source of this pyramid, and we will block the river, and it will dry up. So yeah, go and show some love to this girl. I think she needs it. She's called Kemet Queen, and she's a lovely girl, guys. Go and check her out. I think she needs it. All right, see you in the next video, guys. Bye.